Great to see faces. Great to see names. Aaron, so good to see your name.
Good morning, good morning.
Excellent. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes just because there was a mix-up this morning with Zoom event links. So I'm glad everybody was able to find that and join us for this bright and early morning for some of you, or really late for others. So I know we've got some people. We've got one in California and someone else in Germany. So got quite a range of people here. So thank you everyone for showing up.
We'd love to see you. And guys, just FYI, we believe that this session also will make its way to YouTube. So we are so glad you're here. And I can't wait to get this conversation going. How's everyone doing today? I've got a thumbs up. I've got a head nod. I got 2 thumbs up. 3. Woo!
Excellent.
We're getting there. We're getting there. You know, guys, we like engagement.
So I know that we've got a couple of people who are going to be showing up late. I know we have at least one person who's going to be leaving early, so I'd like to get started. So just to start us off, my name is Michael Dankloffs, and me and Suzanne have been putting on these summits once a month to really talk about deep questions about what's really going on in the world, and we call it the Elevation Mindset Summit. We invite powerful speakers to come and talk with us and explore these ideas. Today, we actually have Cesar Espino, who's joining us. He is the producer of the You Can Overcome Anything podcast, as well as the writer of a book of, 6 titles now, Cesar?
5.
5 now?
Yes.
Gotcha. So, and his story is one that we shared earlier this year, and his drive has actually gotten him to where he is today. And he's going to be talking a little bit about that. And we're going to be going through a little bit different style today. It's going to be more of an interview style. We've got a bunch of questions, and I'll be managing and corralling us. And there will be time at the end, as we normally do, for question and answer. So also want to let you know that Suzanne Buchanan and we've really made this a space where we want to hear your feedback. This is part of a conversation with you, not at you. So Suzanne is a career communication specialist. I am a programmer and a life coach, and we like to play. We like to get into things and really kind of dig up some of this angst, some of this empowerment, all of these things that are actually going on in the world right now. And drive was really important. And oddly enough, it's very fitting for this time of year, even though we set this schedule in December of last year. So with all the things going on, our drive is, for me, what's going to help get us through the end of harvest, which for many of us it's that harvest time for the work we've put in the beginning of the year. So I want to start off by asking Cesar here for, who was your mentor around drive? Is there an idol or a person specifically that you look to whenever it comes to your drive, and kind of where did you learn that from?
Yeah, Michael, thank you again, and welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with you guys. Definitely, this is a very interesting question. And when I think about who is my mentor around my drive, I think we can all agree that there's many different people in our lives that come in and they help us, and they, to an extent, are some form of a mentor to us and help us through our journey. When I think about that, though, and as I continue to look at my journey of this life of being an entrepreneur, I feel that my mentor is myself 5 years from now, 10 years from now, near the future, right? And when I say that, is that the best person and the person that you really want to be able to be 1% better is that person that's in front of you, of that mirror, yourself, right? And so, yeah, definitely you have people that are going to help you, people that are going to edify you, give you ideas. At the end of the day, though, it's you who have to walk through that door. It is you who have to do all the different things to get to where you want to be able to get to. And so for me, my drive, and for me, being able to say, who is that one person that is helping me get to the next level? It's definitely myself. It's definitely being able to recognize and realize that at the end of the day, all of the struggles, all the challenges, all the things that I'm going through, I got to be able to get through them. And yes, of course, you have somebody giving you guidance and giving you some sort of idea on how to go and overcome those obstacles. Nevertheless, you are the one that you have to be with that 1% better. And so for me, I would say it's myself in the near future, always looking at what do I need to be today to be that person that I want to be tomorrow.
Thank you, Caesar, for that. And I would pose then the same question to you, Suzanne. Is there a particular person who you model your drive after?
It would help if I'm not on mute. Absolutely not. Caesar and I kind of share something. And I don't know if those of you were here with us when Caesar spoke before, but in our, I think the way we were raised and the influences that came from our childhood kind of led us to looking for sources in different places. For me, I had a really loving mother who was a beautiful source of unconditional love, but she came with a lot of fear and worry, and she put ceilings on herself throughout her whole life. So that was not the source for me. I had a father that was wildly successful in business, and he set a great example in some ways in that regard, but he was so distant from his family that I wasn't close enough to learn from it. So I didn't have, that one source growing up. And I think like many of us, we find pieces of truth throughout our life, and it's up to us to recognize there's a North Star, there's a North Star, there's another star to follow. And so many of us, we go through life and we kind of accumulate mentors along the way. If we often get asked those questions, like, who would you want, 3 famous people you would want to have lunch with, even if they're already dead? One of mine is Scooby-Doo, unconditional love. One of mine is Gandhi, for the perseverance he had, for being able to turn a vision into reality and really make the world bend to a moral arc of justice that needed to be found. So I think like many of us, we find mentors along the way, and we pick up pieces of truth and purity and pieces that resonate with us. And it's up to us to develop the skill, that listening skill, to say, this is something I want to run with.
Got it. Thank you for that. So as we're talking about drive, we've been on Clubhouse every Tuesday as well, kind of digging into this concept of drive and where it shows up, why it shows up. Is it something we're born with? Is it something that we learn? But the question I have for you is that, drive can show up in many different areas of our life. It can show up in our financial life, in our career, in our relationships, or in our health. And Suzanne, I'm curious for you is that what areas do you feel like you're really driven in? And then what areas are you not?
Oh, I've given so much thought to this lately, especially around tax season, people. For those of you in the US, you know what I mean. So I think some of us are kind of born and cultured into certain areas and strengths. There are ways that some of us, develop superpowers in, and it's not always by choice. Sometimes it's do or die, sometimes it's die or thrive. So for me, I think some of that drive comes from knowing what I'm capable of, knowing that where I am is not where I could be. And that takes great self-awareness, guys. You have to know who you are within to know you're not where you should be. And you also have to listen to that compass inside of you to say, something's off here. Your emotions are signals that tell you when something is off, or you have that inner knowing. So for me, some of that drive comes from that inner knowing. And for those of you who have not met me before, while I have been blessed with an amazing career in communications, I've also developed a very strong superpower in the natural health world and extensive knowledge there. And that's because I was born with a potentially fatal blood disease that affects my immune system among many other areas of my body. And so from early on, I had to develop skills if I wanted to live a normal life. I had to develop myself if I wanted to live the life of my dreams. So some of that drive came from knowing that where I was wasn't good enough. And if you go deeper from that, that comes from your beliefs about what you believe you deserve. So, you know, drive comes from many places, but I've found that really, ultimately, it's a measure from within. And it tells us how we think and feel about ourselves, how we think and feel about the world and our reason for being here, and our impact upon it.
Got it. So what I very much heard was that kind of your health has been the thing that you've almost had to have a big drive in, otherwise you wouldn't live the life that you are.
Actually, I don't think so. I think it's knowing I have greater goals than just managing a blood disease, knowing that I have a bigger impact on this world than my health. And it's the fear of not being able to reach my highest potential. You know, that is the ambition for overcoming health issues. That is the ambition for doing that. But the health is not the ambition. It's not the drive.
Got
It's
it.
the trigger.
Got it. Thank you for that. Caesar, what about for you? Is there an area that you feel really driven in, and then some areas that you don't?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very interesting question. You know, one of the things that I did early on when I decided to take the leap of faith and leave my 9-to-5 well-paying job to become a full-time entrepreneur, one of the things that I decided to do was to do an assessment, you know, and you've seen this in many different forms, the wheel of life, right? And you take an assessment of all these different elements that can potentially help you drive towards your future. So for me, when I went through this life assessment, I started looking at, well, what is that one thing that's driving me right now? And it was actually the reason that the one reason that allowed me to take that leap of faith and really leave my job. And I got to tell you, even, you know, definitely, I can definitely go into details with that. That by itself was a very scary thing to do, because again, sometimes we as people are so afraid of being uncomfortable when we're so comfortable in a job or in a relationship or something to that nature, that we tend to take away the opportunity that's in front of us. We talk ourselves out of it. And that was the case for me. When I did the self-assessment, one of the things that was driving me then and still driving me now was my career, right? There's different elements, obviously my health and different things that go with that. I came to realize though, that for me, having this idea of what I consider to be my highest intention, what is my purpose, what is my mission, what is that one thing that I want to be able to accomplish before I leave this world, right? And then that became the driving force, the driving factor for me to say, you know what, I need to do X, Y, and Z to be able to impact my life positively, not only my life, also impact the life of other people. And so for me, it was being able to take the leap of faith and say, I'm leaving this good job, very well-paying job, to venture into something that is ultimately going to give me the freedom, is ultimately going to give me the ability to have this type of conversations and be able to talk to people and impact other people's lives. And even if that means that I'm going to be challenged in many different ways, financially, health-wise, all these things, because I feel that once I find that balance, all of that is going to come into play. And so for me, it was really the career aspect. You know, for those of you that have heard my story or know a little bit about me, you know, I was born in Mexico City and I came from a very poor family, didn't have anything to show for. And so when I think about that and I think about where I am now, if it wasn't for that drive, I would probably be back in Mexico and doing the things that I was doing to be able to survive. And those things were very challenging. And so again, I think the idea of being that 1% better, which we talked about earlier, being able to say, I want to leave a legacy, whether it's for myself, for my family, or for people, being able to do all of that is what's driving me. And so for me is the career path that is going to lead to have everything else that I want in life.
Got it. And I certainly observed for many men on the planet that your profession is the thing that is actually driving you to your next big thing. And I think that for me, it's one reason why I embrace the lifebook lifestyle, because it's not just that one career category. And I know several of you that are on this this meeting with us right now, and several of the people that may even be watching this in the future, is the lifebook is looking at 12 categories of your life where career is one. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to ask each of you is, where do you have a big drive in your life, and where have you not applied that momentum, that ambition, as Suzanne was mentioning before? Because my goal is to actually live a 12 category smart life, and sometimes it's a really big drive in this direction and maybe not that. So Cesar, you really kind of highlighted what has been the big drive. Is there an area that you don't apply that same ambition?
Yeah, I would say that definitely. And kind of going back to that, again, we got to be very honest, right? Nobody's grading you. Nobody's going to look at your assessment and say, hey, you did good or you did bad. At the end of the day, you have to be honest to yourself. That is the very first thing. And again, that is a very difficult thing to swallow. Sometimes when you're doing this assessment and you're like, crap, I'm a 1 out of a 10 on this particular category. And that happened to me when I did this. I felt like I was in a very dark place in terms of everything going on in my life, that I really was very, maybe to an extent, very honest to myself. And it was scary to see that I was a 1 or a 2 or a 0 in many of the categories. Having that said, one of the categories that I probably was not putting too much emphasis was the relationship aspect. And more so in the relationship, not necessarily friends and mentors or role models. I'm talking about more like in the loving relationship. And the reason why I say that is that at that time, my focus was, I got to be able to take care of myself, because if I cannot take care of myself, I cannot take care of anybody else. And so I didn't really look into that aspect as closely as I should, just because I was focusing on other areas. Again, career being number one. My health being the other one, finances, right? The way our human mind works is that we can do anywhere between 3 to 5 different tasks or things to be able to move forward. If you start doing more than that, you're gonna end up losing control, and you're not gonna be able to really get anything done. And so for me, I was focusing on the top 3. Again, it was my career, it was my health, and it was my finances. And then I said, once I can take care of those things and I taken that to a different level, then I can go back to some of the other things in this wheel of life, right? And so I would say definitely relationships in the loving relationships. Nevertheless, I do edify and I do love to network with people. So the business and the working relationships, I'm always enhancing. I do believe that we are the average of the 5 people. And I know that's kind of, you always hear this, right? Yet I always want to take it one step further. And for me, is really 3 different categories. Number 1 is you want to have somebody that is playing at a higher playing field than you. Again, we can see that as somebody as a mentor, someone that you want to be able to, follow after them and learn from them so that you can get to that level. The second group of people are people that are at the same playing field as you are. They want the same things as you want. Yet the difference here is you are not competing against them. You are actually helping each other. You're edifying each other. Very similar to this year. We're working together for a common goal. And so I think it's very important to get that kind of people. And then the last one, probably the most important thing, is that there's people below you in the sense of they're not in the same place as you are, yet they want to be you. This gives you the ability to reach down and bring them up to your level. Is that idea of grace, the idea of helping other people, the idea of being grateful of where you're at now. And so I always like to take it to that level.
And this is why we have Cesar on our Elevation Mindset Summit, because he drops things like this and such a thorough answer for this, because it can be difficult when you're so focused on your professional relationships but you let go of your personal relationships, or you let go of your love relationship. And I certainly see those as being different aspects. And thank you for, kind of bringing that to our attention. This is one of the questions that we kind of had on our list, and I've heard it already kind of from you a little bit, but I really kind of want to dig in, because it sounds like starting out, it was a lot of external motivations versus now it sounds like more internal. Which has been the bigger drive? But what has been the trigger for you? Is it external factors or is it internal? Caesar?
Yeah, for me, to be honest with you, it really, I think you're right. At first, for me in my career, early on in my career, going through corporate America, having my MBA, a lot of that was external, right? I was always looking at the external aspect of, what can I do in the external world to be able to help me? Then I realized early on in my entrepreneurial career that it was really the internal factor that I needed to focus on. And I'll explain why. When I started looking at the internal aspect, and that has been really the drive for me, because when I started looking at the internal aspect, I realized that there were a lot of things that I was missing out of my life. One of the things is I was neglecting my health. I always tell that I was a walking bomb. Like every time I go get a self checkup, they're like, you're about to blow up, right? I mean, literally, I was really bad because, again, I was so focused on the external aspect and working many hours and not eating right and doing all these different things. So I neglected my health. I also neglected my relationships because I was so focused on doing that one item, one task, whatever that might be. And I came to the realization that for things to change, I have to change. And so with that, I decided that I needed to work on my internal drive. What do I mean by that? Well, I decided to make a drastic change. One of those things was to be able to say, you know what? I'm not going to watch news anymore because it really is bad news, as you guys know that. I'm not going to watch news. All of that negative programs that are going into your head are really affecting your life, even though you don't realize it at that moment. It's going to your unconscious mind. The second thing I did is I'm not going to listen to music that is not serving me. I got to be able to be very careful on the words that I'm taking in, whether it's through news, TV shows, movies, music, or even people that are talking to you. And so I decided to change that. And then the last thing that I did, more than anything, is very similar to a vehicle that you're going to do a tune-up and you want that vehicle to have do that repetitively. Or when you're trying to lose weight, you're feeding your body with the right ingredients. You got to do the same thing with your mind. So I started reading motivational books, things that were going to help me in my drive. I started doing affirmations. I really make a big change to really work on my internal self. There's an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm. When you think about that from that aspect, if you take care of your mental health, you take care of your internal aspect, there's nothing outside that's going to stop you from moving forward. There's nothing outside that is going to stop you from doing the things you want to do, because everything is possible. Everything that we do, everything that we have, first happen in our mind, then it happened in the external world. And so for me, is really working on that internal drive, working on that mental health, working on being able to have the right programs that are going to help me take my life to the next level on the external world.
Got it. Thank you for that. And it was just also as well, I know we have a question here in the chat as well, as how do you define drive? And you kind of really covered that, I think, really well, is that thing that draws you forward, that thing that you actually are pushing or being, I know Alan and I have actually talked about this, is there's that you're pushing into something. And I know, Caesar, I think that we've talked about that as well, is versus that something that's pulling you towards it. There's that, falling into flow, however you want to be that. So it's that intentionality of the direction that you're heading. So thank you.
It's definitely that push and pull, right? You definitely want to be pushed to something because you have the idea. A lot of people refer to what is your motivation, what is your why, what is your that one thing that you want to be able to accomplish, and it comes different for every single person. At the end of the day, though, it is, what is that purpose? Like, I believe that we are here in this world for a reason. And once you can tap into that reason, you understand what that might be, you're going to push yourself to get to that, whatever that might be, right? What is that why? What is that motivation? What is that, for me, again, is my highest intention to be able to motivate, inspire, and be able to leave something behind, leave a legacy so that if I die today, I feel fulfilled that I did everything that I wanted to do, right? And so once you define that, that's going to be that push to get you to that drive.
Awesome. So I'm going to then kind of put this same question over to you, Suzanne, is, the internal versus external. Once again, it sounds like you started off with having health being internal and yet external motivation, but then your drive for doing something bigger and better sounds like it's changed, it's evolved over time.
I don't know if it has changed for me. I think that life teaches us lessons along the way. I'm fortunate that I think my source of fuel has always been more internal. My locus of control has always been more internal. I'm thankful I'm somebody that, has ideas, has visions, has goals, has dreams. But the willpower to get there, the drive to get there, again, comes from those beliefs within us. And, Caesar didn't stop. He still hasn't stopped because he knows there's more there. And so I think that's something, and similar to Caesar and so many guys, the total cliche story, when we ignore other areas of our life, we fall behind and there are consequences. There's been times when I've overworked myself, and with my health condition, that leads to kind of serious stuff, so I've seen those consequences, which makes you pull back, of course, and reevaluate how you're spending your time, the quality attention that you're giving to those other areas of your life. But all the while, we're purpose driven, we're mission led. Caesar talked about that person 5 years in the future and that person he wants to be. And for me, I know the impact in this world that I want to be making. And so it's not that I have the exact template or game plan either, but by listening to those other sources, we're able to really look at the path forward.
Got it. Yeah, and it is such a challenge to be driven forward towards one space and at the same time being held back in another. So I think that each of us have I know I've had those times when I'm really driving towards this one particular space. So we're really kind of talking in many ways about those positive side of being driven, and there can also be a cost for this. Like we said just now, there's this cost of you're focusing and driving in this area, but you're missing out, or there's this other aspect that is waning instead of waxing. So Caesar, for you, I guess what my question would be is, what for you is the difference between being driven versus being obsessive?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that at the end of the day, it really comes down to two different elements. I believe that you have to have a level of obsession, except it really comes down to the drive and more calculated risk. And for me, is more understanding what is it that I'm doing, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish, and being able to take that to a very structured aspect of my life or my task on hand, right? I do believe that again, you have to have a little bit of obsession. Yet I also believe that sometimes, just like in a relationship, you can be obsessed, yet you're not getting nowhere. You're not seeing the results. You're not able to actually think of it thoroughly and be able to say how you want that to develop. And so for me is really having that discipline and understanding what is it that I want to accomplish. I always tell people, anything you want to do, although you don't know what's going to be in the near future, start with the end in mind. What is it that you're trying to accomplish, right? And then work yourself backwards. If I want to be able to open up a business in 2022, well, what does that mean? That's my ultimate goal. Then I'm going to take that and I'm going to chunk it down into smaller pieces and then start working on those smaller pieces, and then make sure that there's two different components. Number one, I can measure them, right? So they're measurable. So you have some sort of KPI, key performance indicator. The second thing is you want that to be time definite. You want to be able to have a time that is tied back into that, right? Going back to the idea of being obsessed, if you're obsessed of really opening up a business, you're going to be doing it in a sense of with the understanding and the discipline and the different elements to help you get there. If you're just doing something out of obsession without having a game plan, I believe you're not really going to get the results you want to be able to get. It has to be a combination with that, because again, yes, I wanted to be a book writer, and with that, when I decided to do my very first book, yeah, there was a sense of obsession. I wanted to get that done. Yet I also knew by when I wanted to get it done and how I wanted to structure and who I wanted to impact through that book. It has to be a combination of both.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I really kind of, and I know for Suzanne that you may have a slightly different perspective on this whole idea of measurable goals and only things you can see. What's your thought on the difference really between being driven and being obsessed about something?
Yeah, so I think they're definitely mutually exclusive. I don't think that they're the same thing. And I think Cesar kind of alluded to that too. But I don't know wildly successful people that are balanced. I just don't. And I don't know people who have changed the world without allowing themselves to get a little obsessed. And of course, it's up to us and our own self-knowledge, our self-awareness of where those limits are, what our level of comfort is in letting ourselves go and possibly grow into something. I think we live in a world where we're almost taught to be afraid of our power. And I think there's something to be said for taking the leash and reins off. So I don't mind obsession, but again, like Cesar said, there's the crazy level, but I think almost people use that as an example to keep us in line. And I think so many of us get to a point in our life where we realize we could have done more. And I don't want that for any of you. I want you to let yourself free into becoming whoever you need to be. Get enough obsessed that you get to where you need to go. And I'm all with Cesar, like, have a plan, have an execution strategy. Just because, you're methodical doesn't mean that you're not passionate, driven, and obsessed. You can have structure to that. In fact, I would argue you need structure to achieve great things. I don't think that these are different subjects. I think we need to learn how to figure out what works best for us. And I do think we need structure. I do think we need some obsession. I do think we need to level within us and not be afraid of how far we might go. So.
Thank you for that. And there is this, my ex-wife is a psychologist, so I know, enough kind of by osmosis of there's little aspects of things that we all express. And it's when it becomes clinical, when it becomes that the obsession gets in the way of creating the mission, for me at least, that actually makes the difference. So when the obsession is at all cost, and that's kind of where I want to go next, is that, at what level is there collateral damage for leaving such a driven life? What was lost because you were driving in this direction? So Suzanne, would you say that there's anything that because you were so driven down this path that there was something that you look back and go, yeah, I missed on that?
Yes and no. I will not condemn my script. I'm not done, and none of us are. And so I do want to caution us against prejudging any part of our life. You know, Michael, you've talked about the life book process. Are you in that because you're done, or are you in that because you're in the process of creating? Right? Caesar, you too. That's why we're here. And that's why you're here, because you haven't given up. You're not interested in regrets. You want to do the best you can do in those areas. And if you have let one area fall, we know that this is the conscientious crowd. This is the right group of people that's going to come to that self-awareness. That's why you're here. That's why we love to see your face. And so for me, sure, there are areas that have fallen, you know, out of proportion and have been neglected while I'm focusing on, let's say, my health. Or let's say I'm hyper focused on my career and I overdo it and my health goes south. Working in very high stress work environment. Guys, I'm sure some of you know about toxic work environments. I was in one of the worst, and it was with the federal government. And it was so bad, I didn't feel comfortable dating. I didn't feel comfortable having a relationship because I couldn't wash it off. And so I had to remove myself from the toxic environment. So, but that was also a very high stress job. I was dealing with racial conflict across the US and discrimination tension, very heavy stuff. So some of those somatic skills about learning how to decompress and detox and really move on from that energy, you know, that was something that I had a hard time doing, in addition, because I was in the toxic work environment. So yeah, there's definitely those areas, but you know, we come to awareness, we make tough decisions. Caesar took big risks with his career, but he set himself free. And I know that's why you guys are here with us today. And that's the same with me.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that. So on your side, Caesar, was there any collateral damage for an area that you were really driven in?
Yeah, I think definitely, I think it's part of that journey. There's always going to be some sort of collateral damage, right? And it really comes down to being able to see things from a different perspective, being able to put on different glasses and look at it from a different lens. I do believe that everything we go through, there's a reason. I don't see things as failures anymore. I see them as lessons. I see them as, what was the one thing that I needed to learn from this? What is the educational experience that I need to walk away from whatever took place? As bad as that might have seemed, right? And prior to that, I was always playing that victim role. Why me, right? There's this drama cycle where, you know, you have the perpetrator, the victim, and the rescuer. And I was always in this cycle. Either I was one of those three things, and always playing myself or blaming me or trying to rescue somebody that just didn't want to be rescued, or whatever the case may be, or always being angry. And part of that is because, again, going through that journey of realizing and understanding that that was what I believe to be my truth. Yet I realized that that's not the case. Again, everything we go through is a lesson. And so I've gone through a lot of lessons. I've learned a lot through my journey, from the minute that I was born all the way through now. My career has gone through many ups and downs, yet there has been a lesson to be learned. And so when you have this drive, when you have this highest intention, when you have this mission, when you have a purpose that you're following through, things are going to happen. You might end up, losing to your health and realizing that you're not in a very good health place. That happened to me. I remember one time that I was doing a good deed and going through this. First time in my life at the age of 38, I experienced what I consider to be a panic attack in the middle of an intersection in LA. I crumbled into a little ball and I was literally dying, and it took me to the ER. That was a collateral damage for me doing the things that I wanted to do. Did that stop me? No. I've learned to adjust. I surrender. I didn't surrender to give up. I surrendered to accept. I surrendered to evaluate and say, how can I look at whatever's going on and take that and become better? Thank God I haven't had any of those, because now I know how to control that. But it was that aftermath. Another thing that happened to me through my career and the things that I'm doing now, I've lost a lot of personal relationships, people that didn't level with me, that didn't see what I was trying to accomplish. Why? Because it's not their dream, it's my dream. And they don't have the same vision. Yet, because of that, I've lost a lot of relationships. Did that stop me? No, I'm gonna continue to move forward. And so I guess my whole point to that is that, yeah, there's gonna be collateral damages through your journey. See it as a lesson. What can you extract? And do know that everything's gonna be better on the other side. And again, surrender, not to give up, surrender to understand, to accept, and to be able to take a different turn, a turning point, a different aspect in life. One thing that we have to remember is that the decisions and choices that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. So we got to be able to take that from that perspective.
Thank you so much, Caesar, for going into that, because that kind of led me to what my next question is that I'll ask Suzanne about, because you kind of already went there. Is there room in your life, Suzanne, for people who are less motivated or less driven? Because it sounds like Caesar, he's left them in his dust.
I don't know about Caesar, because he has those 3 levels of connections he just told us about, and he helps people level up. And that's always going to be something that I'm passionate about. I'm very clear about where I'm supposed to be and what my social circle and professional circle of influence is. That part is not unclear to me. I do not cut people out of my life that aren't, going to where I want to go. But I find that like attracts like, and eventually life sorts itself out. Unless it's something toxic and you need to prune, guys, do it. Don't waste a second. You know what I mean, and those are the really toxic, negative relationships. But otherwise, I feel like life filters itself out. And by your focus on your goals, your mission, your direction, the vibration and energy you're sending, you will naturally repel and attract the right people into your life. I don't really worry about that. I don't have a bubble up. I don't feel like I need to block people out. However, similar to Caesar, though, I watch the media that comes into my lives. I watch the energy of the voices around me, and I'm cognizant of the influences on me. So you do protect your energy, you protect your space. But your focus is really going to determine what falls within your filter. And people will naturally fall away, I feel like, unless they're the difficult ones. Like I said, let's go ahead and, do the deed. But that's how I feel about it.
I know I've similarly experienced the same thing, is that it's tough because there is this idea is that I want to lift and mentor and pull people up, and there's people I'm going to reach up for in order to be pulled up, and then my peers that I want to bring along with me. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to ask this particular question is because there is this idea of, I want to say no to good so I can say yes to great. And that great can be in any category of your life, and I want to be around people who are striving to something better. And I see so many people who are stuck here. They're stuck in a rut and they are not ready to get out of it because it's comfortable. And I know that that's part of our own human nature to want to stay where we're comfortable. But for those that are driven like Caesar and Suzanne and probably several of you here, is there time for the people who are not, they may not directly be contributing to your purpose, but hopefully they're not a drag on your purpose. So with that, Suzanne, is there anything in particular that's ever killed your drive, that all of a sudden it just stopped you in your tracks and you were useless to that which you were driving towards?
So I had a business mission that a federal law was passed that basically made it illegal. So that would be one where I was like, okay, that business is probably not going to happen that way. For those of you unaware, I also have a background in global conflict resolution. I've done anti-terrorism work, madrasa reform in Pakistan, etc. So I have had a wild background in communications, but yeah, so that would be one where I was like, okay, clearly the universe is redirecting me in another direction, and that's okay. That would be one for sure. Or when your ideas and the universe simply aren't agreeing, kind of like Caesar, you have to understand you're being redirected and trust and have faith that you're going to end up in a place that's great. And that takes a lot of humility sometimes, right? Because we want what we want and we know what we know, but it doesn't always go that way. And when it doesn't, are we wise enough? Are we sharp enough? Are we perceptive enough to find the lesson, to redirect and accept the energy that the universe is giving us?
Got it. Thank you for that. I know for me, the things that have come up have been more self-sabotage things that have really kind of stopped me in my tracks. And then all of a sudden that aspect of my life came to a screeching halt. So, and
oh no, I've got plenty of that too. Oh, for sure. Like my health or something like that. Like, oh, what do you mean I'm going to spend 3 weeks in the hospital? Like, that's really not what I had planned, people. So yeah.
Gotcha. So for Caesar, for you, is there any particular moment in your life that you can see where your drive just stopped?
I don't even know where to start. I mean, you guys kind of cover a lot of those things. At the end of the day, I think, it comes down to that one aspect. If you're driven and you have a purpose, you have a mission, you have an idea, right? And I kind of keep going back to this thought. You have that idea. Yes, you're going to have that self-sabotage and you're going to have those moments where you're just ready to give up. I had many of those moments in my life, specifically when I became a full-time entrepreneur. I started doubting myself. I started talking myself out of it. And, just really coming to the idea of, what am I doing? I'm ready to throw in the towel. I'm ready to give up. I'm ready to just not move forward, because sometimes we as human beings, we want to be able to see the immediate gratification, the immediate reward. Yet once you realize that we all have a different journey, a different path to walk, that some of us might get there faster than others. We all have a different journey, and you realize that, and you come to terms with that, and understand. And as I think you mentioned, that you trust the process, you believe, you have faith, then you're going to go back to the idea of, I'm going to continue to do this whichever way I need to do it. If I need to pivot, if I need to change one strategy, if I need to go right just 10% or 10 degrees, then let me do that, because I have a mission, I have an idea. I'll give you a quick story. One instance when this happened to me, and I think we all go through this. My very first book, when I was going to write my very first book, I talked myself out of writing my first book. I literally did. For 2-3 months, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Because when I had the idea of writing this book, the first thing that came to my mind is, Caesar, who are you kidding? You are not a writer. Who's going to read your material? Who is this for? You don't even like to read books. Like, these are the internal conversations that I was having. And I said, you know what? You're right. I don't like to read. The last time I read something was like 25 years ago in my English class. And that's because they forced me to do it. Other than that, I've never read a book. And then it wasn't until I came to terms and I said, you know what if I change the frame, the idea, the purpose? What if I change that? So what if nobody reads my books? So what if I'm not a writer? So what if nobody even knows that I wrote a book? What if I do it because I want to do it for a self-accomplishment, because I want to leave something behind to my daughter, so that at least somebody can have and understand my story? What about if I do it for that reason, for that purpose? When I change the framing of that, guess what? Boom, the light bulb went on and I started writing. And I actually finished my book a month prior than I expected. Again, going back to the idea, start with the end in mind. I finished 1 month before. When I published that book, oh my God, the reviews that I got on Amazon, people that I didn't know that were texting me and sending me all these messages saying, your book has impacted me and has changed my point of view. That is what was a self-accomplishment. It felt good. So again, you're always going to go through those downs and ups and things that are going to hold you back. Yet maybe think about, how can I change the framing? How can I change the way I see things? How can I change my vision or understand what is my purpose and go after that?
Awesome. Thank you for that. It's like you actually know the questions I'm going to be asking next, because that kind of runs right into the next one. So, but I'm going to ask this a little bit different way, because it sounds like reframing it is what allowed you to reignite that when you stopped yourself. Did you have help to shift that, or did you do that all on your own?
No, I would say, again, I go back to the community, right? People like this in this group right here. I have a lot of networking people that I met through different events, right? So a lot of times you kind of go back and just kind of get some thoughts, and you get advices and things of that nature, right? Definitely, I would say 90% of it was me. 10% of it was me talking to somebody else and say, hey, this is what's going on through my head, and then they help you with that. I go back to the idea, you have people that are going to edify you, people that are going to help you, people that are going to guide you through it. And I think that's important to have, right? And so I would say that it is important to be part of this community. It's important to be able to have people on your side that can just give you a word of advice, right? A word of wisdom. It could be one word, one phrase, one sentence that can really impact and change what you're going to do next in your life.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So what for you, Suzanne, has really allowed you to reignite that? When you've actually had this detour, what's got you back on track? Is it all work inside your head? Are you triggered by something? Are you seeking help, advice, support, community? What gets you there?
I think part of it is letting ourselves celebrate the small wins, because at that moment, our confidence is pretty demolished. And if we can only take that first step, if we can only XYZ, and as we, in sometimes blind faith, take those first steps and say, oh, I've got this. Oh, a little bit more. And so that really helps. Having people that believe in you, though, is outstanding, guys. But you know what you have to do for that? You have to let yourself be known. You have to open up to the world. And in Caesar's example, he found a different motivation and he got through his book, but then he got the confirmation from the universe, from the reviews, from people, the response, and that gave him another, some more fuel to continue on. So I think, he found the way to have a small win and to reframe it. For me, the same way, when I build back, The first thing I do is reevaluate my vision and my beliefs. Did they change? Did I fall down because I did something wrong? Did I let go of the star I was following? Some honesty. And then after that, taking that risk and starting again, doing something small, celebrating the win, building slow momentum, keeping the promises to yourself, building back that internal accountability. Those are some of the steps. And then if you have somebody also that believes in you, that really helps. But, I think there's danger in relying on external motivation and affirmation. I think that there's a danger when it's exclusive, but it's great to have people who believe in you.
Awesome. So I guess the last question before, as we kind of wrap up and getting into more of our question and answer, is there's this, maybe it's a myth that when you're driven, it's that you're always unhappy, so you're driving to the next thing. So if it's always the I'll be happy when thing. So my question is, how do you balance that drive and actually being happy with the process? So Suzanne, how do you play with those and make that work?
This could be my sickness or my superpower. You guys can decide. I totally don't even know anymore. But I'm happiest when I'm following a mission. It's the process that drives me. And I've been at that point where I reached a goal so soon that I was like, what? Oh my gosh, my goal was too small. Now what? And then you have to reevaluate your whole life because you made it there by the time you were like 30 something. And then you have to bite off something bigger. So it's funny, I have a newer friend who he's a bit older than me. He's a very, very successful artificial intelligence engineer at Microsoft. I mean, very high level solutions architect. And he could retire at any time. And he said, I am still missing so many things. I said, what are you missing? He said, happiness. He said, how are you at where you are already so much happier than I am? And this is where, we're going to default back to the same old motivational stuff you guys are probably bored of hearing. But when you are grateful for where you are, for who you are, for how you got here, for all you've overcome, for all the universe has invested in you, for the visions, the dreams, the love you've had, the experiences you've learned, this is an amazing life. And so perhaps it's because I've almost died so many times, or, who knows what it is with my illness. I'm blessed and grateful to be here every single moment. And so I take that bliss with me. No, not every single moment. I mean, let's be real, but yeah, it's a part of me.
Thank you for that. So what about you for that idea of balancing out this drive to do that next big thing versus actually being happy with where you're at or the process? How do you balance those?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. I think there's a lot of different things going on in my head right now in terms of that. I guess the one thing is it's a never-ending story. I think it's a never-ending story. I think that the moment you stop pursuing whatever that might be, the moment that you stop working towards your drive, you kind of start dying, right? You hear this a lot, a lot of people that have been working at this company for 20, 40, 50 years, and then they finally retire. And about a couple of years later, because they don't have any motivation, they don't have that drive, they don't have the pressure of going to work, within years, they die, right? It's that idea that the minute you stop doing something, you're going to start dying slowly. And so for me, I think it's a never ending story. The other thing too is, I think is more about the journey than the destination, right? You got to be able to enjoy every single moment, the now moment, the today. We are here today and we are gone tomorrow. So let me enjoy today to be able to understand and see what I want to be able to accomplish tomorrow, right? Is that journey that you have to be able to embrace in many different aspects. And so, definitely you got to be able to look at, well, what will be the balance, or how can I move forward? And I'm going to go back to the idea from earlier today. How can I be that 1% better tomorrow than I was today, or 2% better than I was yesterday tomorrow, right? Is being able to move ahead, moving forward. And so I think the message for me, and at least in my own career, in my own life, and what I'm trying to accomplish is, again, I'm never going to be done. It's always going to be something, because once you get to that one thing you want to accomplish, you got to be able to set new goals, new standards, new targets to go after. If not, again, you're going to be like, shit, now what? What am I going to do now? Right. And again, you start dying slowly.
Got it. And I get that. And there's this part of me, I tend to be the optimist, but it's like, it's a never ending story. It's never done. It's like, okay, then why am I doing all of this if I'm never going to be done? But then there's this, what I tend to encourage a lot of my clients to do is, there is this pause between completing that, celebrate,
right,
and then take on the next thing. And I think that many times, and I know on my men's team as well as in other spaces, is we don't take the time to celebrate that and find that reward and that win. So even what Suzanne was talking about, being grateful for it, I think is also key too.
And just to add to that, you're right. You got to be able to celebrate those small wins throughout the process. And again, not measuring what that never-ending story with a financial aspect. I don't believe that either. I'm not talking about a financial aspect. Being successful does not mean that you have a lot of money in the bank account. Being successful means what makes you happy. And it goes back to what Susanna was talking about. It could be about being grateful. For me, I love going down to, in LA, I love going down to Rosarito, Ensenada, and I build homes as a philanthropist. Why? Because it takes me back to who I was as a kid, where I didn't have anything. That is a self-accomplishment. If I can do a bunch of different things here, then I can help people in a different aspect. I can impact the world differently, giving back, helping out, being grateful. Like all those things to me is that never ending story.
Got it. Thank you so much for Caesar and Suzanne for going through these questions and bringing your views on the world. And we had several questions that were asked in the chat. So I want to, kind of transition here. And we've really kind of dug deep on what drive means for us. Now we really want to check back in with you and, what are your questions? So I know, Aaron, you had a couple of questions that you had asked in the chat. Do you want to come up on video and ask your questions? Looks like he's frozen. So there's one question that Aaron had of Caesar was, so you used an external motivation such as affirmations in order to fuel your inner drive, and kind of checking in on that. Was that sound about right?
Yeah, again, for me is I got to work on my internal aspect and my internal drive. There's obviously going to be external factors that are going to help you with that, right? You want to be able to utilize, you have a tool belt, right? You got to be able to use all the tools in your belt to help you move forward and get you to the next level. So definitely when you look at affirmations, that is an external drive that's going to fuel your internal mind and your mental health. I would even take it further to where you can create your own affirmations, right? Yeah, you can definitely listen to, affirmations that are already made. If you want it to be more impactful, create your own, right? Combining your affirmations with your tonality, with your physiology, right? Adding those three elements into the mix is going to make a much greater impact on the unconscious mind. And so again, is being able to understand and see what are some of the external factors that I can take and extract that can help my internal aspect. So yeah.
Got it. Thank you for that. It is this once again, it sounds a lot about the balance with all of this. So the last question that Aaron had asked was, so Suzanne, do you believe that you naturally attract the right people on your mission, or is there more to it than that?
I think that's a great question. And I'll tell you what my experience has been. When you speak, things happen. There is an energy that comes from your words that is more powerful when you speak them than when you write them down. There is a power in writing your vision, your message down, for sure. But when you speak them and you share them to the world, there is something that happens in a vibrational level that words have a hard time accounting for. And the more that I speak my vision, the stronger the vibration is, the clearer the attraction is. And people who are on that same frequency, they catch it. And that is a point of attraction. You know, we're talking about drive, and doesn't that really tell us about our flawed sense of struggle? Of this struggle and, you know, an uphill battle that we're fighting. We talk about the fight, the struggle, you know, it's such heroism in the struggle. But what about attraction? What about putting out, and perhaps this comes from the fact that so few of us are really taught how to tap into our own power. But what if we send out vibrations that are strong enough that we're attracting that we're attracting people with a similar vision? It doesn't happen in a bubble. I don't mean just sit there and meditate and send out some vibes, but speak it, act it, you know, act on your mission, and let everything you do come out with such an intention in your heart and in your mind. You know, when your emotions are attached to this vision, then the resonation goes out further. And so I've found that to be true. I've found that, you know, when we think and I don't mean there's several types of flow. There's flow when our mindset is on and we're able to accomplish things in lightning speed and everything goes smooth. But there's also a life flow where we're meeting all the right people. It's an external sense of flow where things are falling into place in actionable ways in the universe. And I believe that once we are projecting that, you know, powerfully enough, it goes from internal to external. And that's when things start to fall in alignment. So it takes hyper focus, it takes determination, and perhaps a little obsession. But I do think that is, you know, how you attract the right people on any mission.
Yeah,
Does that make sense, Aaron? I'm sorry, Michael, go ahead.
That totally makes sense for me, and I've certainly experienced the same thing. I mean, most of the people that are here is because I have spoken the word out to the world, and I said, "Come and join me." So, you know, I really appreciate the fact that you kind of go there. It's great to write it down. It's great to meditate on it, and the law of attraction is an amazing vehicle to do things. But action is necessary. It's your words, it's the choices you're making, it's what you're doing with it. So thank you for taking us there.
Yeah. And they're not separate, by the way. That is the extension of the attraction. Like, you have to let it out, guys.
Yep. Awesome. So Alan, you've got a question for us.
I do. I've found that the times when I'm most driven is when I have the highest clarity of not just what I want, but why I want that. Michael talks about life book, and I've used that for myself also. But is there something that you used, some program, some tool that you use to help you gain that clarity for yourself? Really gaining clarity, not just on what, but why.
Caesar?
Yeah, I can probably answer that. For me, very similar to the book you guys are talking about. It was really just being able to do that wheel of life assessment, and I got this from a book, The Miracle Morning, when I read that book. And so one of the things that I do a lot, I now I do read a lot. I tend to at least read 3 books per month. I tend to really enhance my mind, and so through that I get a lot of drive. I get a lot of ideas. I try to put into place a lot of the things that I've learned. So for me, it was really that doing that assessment. In the Miracle Morning, there's only 10 different categories that you assess yourself, and so being able to assess myself in those 10 different categories. And then from there, I took that and a lot of the things that we're talking about, I went ahead and created a game plan, created a vision board. I created my own affirmations. I actually recorded affirmations myself, and then I was saying them with my own voice, and I listened to that every time that I do. I done different things. I'm sure you heard of 75 hard, right? I look at different things to help me move forward. So now I've taken that discipline, and every day, like before this meeting, I got up early and I went out for a walk, 45-minute walk, and I listened to audio that is again reaffirming the things that I want. I want to be able to, as Suzanne mentioned, put it out into the universe. One of the things that I would tell you that I started doing early on that is not easy to do, yet I think is critical. And it goes back to what Suzanne said. Yes, it's good to, I have a book here and I write all the stuff that I do, my affirmations, my daily things, all of that. I also talk, and maybe I'm not talking to anybody. I do put it out into the universe. And one of the things that I started doing that was very hard for me to do was being able to give myself grace and look at myself at the mirror and say, Caesar, I love you. Caesar, I thank you. Caesar, I appreciate you. Now, I got to tell you, that was very difficult to see yourself telling you that same thing. Yet, if nobody else is telling you that, why wouldn't you do that to yourself, right? So it's those little things, those little principles, the idea of, let me go out and listen to something that's going to serve me and help me out. I do believe that within the first 15 minutes of your day, you want to be able to do a couple of things: drink water, do affirmations, go out for a walk. Don't even look at your phone, because how you start your day is going to drive the rest of your day. And then right before you go to sleep, I also do affirmations. Why? Because I want to make sure that I'm going to go to sleep with the idea, the unconscious mind of all these positive things instead of some negative crap, right? And so it's just building different habits on my day-to-day basis to help me with my daily drive, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. I too want to, there's a couple people here who've done the Lifebook process, and it's not a book you read unless you've actually created it, which for some of us, we have our Lifebook. And that for me is my journal. It's where I put those ideas. So that's an amazing tool that I think that it would be awesome if more people had that owner's manual for their life that they've created, not written by somebody else. So I'm going to pose that same question to you, Suzanne, as well, since Alan's asking kind of all of us. What is that tool that has gotten you clarity on what and why you want it?
I have looked at a million planners, tools, courses. I've looked at so many things. Yet, honestly, what has been the strongest for me really is just my own internal conscience about the type of person I want to be. And yes, I believe in the tools. I mean, I think there are daily habits that open us in ways that are important to moving forward in those different areas in our life and achieving metrics. But metrics have to come from some place. And so I like, I've never done the Lifebook process, but I love the idea of it, of the structure of it, and being intentional about the way you live your life. And that's really what my takeaway is from all of this. is understanding that in order to live our best life, we have to be intentional. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. But, you know, as you've heard, I also allow for the other types of energy in my life. I allow for the spiritual, the mystical, the beyond, without getting woo-woo. I know there's more to all of us. I know there's more, and I know you know it, and that's why you're here. So really, more than anything, it comes from our internal compass, our self-awareness, and, you know, I know when my relationships aren't thriving. I know when my finances aren't thriving. We can say we live in denial, but we know, guys. It's just having the courage to really decide to live an intentional life. So that, forgive me, is not, you know, that's not clean and clear. I don't have one source. But I really think that all of those tools are designed to help us bring out what's already within us.
Thank you for that, Suzanne. It really is kind of the pulling back the layers to find those things underneath. And some of us need those tools to get there. And some of us can just dive deep in and find it. So,
and I'm not saying I don't need them.
Got it. So Aaron, did you have another question for us?
I did. Yes. First of all, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it so far. But I'll still jump ahead on my question. So, I mean, Michael and Suzanne, you already know me by now a bit. I'm very curious about everything and want to jump ahead and want to have that clarity of everything straight away. So that's always a certain amount of struggle. And I'm trying to make sense of, let's say, all the opportunities that are in front of me, all the things that I could do, right? And also saying, well, I want to be there and there in 5 years, which seems to me a bit like, well, but there's a million amount of things. How can I know what incredibly drives me, this specific thing? So I'm slowly but surely getting behind there that I have to give myself time or experimentation. And I wanted to ask you, what would you suggest to go about it, to ask myself? Experiments, something around that, patience. Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Action. Action, my friend. Once upon a time, a very wise person I refer to as mom told me, when I had the exact same question to her, Aaron, I was like, there's so many ways, there's so many paths. How will I know? And she said, just start and the path will be made clear. And the bias was towards action. And it is by doing that we will receive that feedback we need, that critical feedback we need, that will help us direct our steps. We will know how it feels. We will know by our emotional reaction, by the universe, you know, by if we feel like we're fighting against things or if it's in flow. There's so many signs. It's really just a matter of listening to those signals. And allowing that feedback to guide you. However, I'm hoping that you, and I think you're super intentional from what I know, is that you're starting off with some ideas of where you want to go. You know, it's not totally random. You have ideas, right? You got a lot of ideas. So for me, I would always recommend a bias towards action. And if you listen to some of the hyper influential influencers that are out there, like Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff like that, he'll talk about action. Like that's really where you're going to learn the most. a lot of them very successful people, they say, you know, they weren't more clear than others. They just messed up far sooner than others. And that gave them the feedback of clarity.
Caesar, do you have any feedback for Aaron?
Definitely, I second what Suzanne is saying. I think a lot of it has to do with action. Maybe a few things that maybe I would consider. Number one, and I've seen this a lot, even myself, when I started my journey of entrepreneurship. If you're working for profits, you're doing it wrong. You have to be working for purpose. A lot of times we get into business, or we want to do something. We have all these ideas because of profits. We're looking at that shiny object. And I think you got to ask yourself, of all the things that you have that you want to be able to do, you know, what is there a purpose behind that? Because if there's no purpose behind it, it's going to end rather sooner than later. You might start off good, you might have some money coming in, yet that idea is going to end up sooner than later. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would ask myself is, out of all the things you want to be able to do, again, going back to the idea that as humans, we can only do so many different things, maybe pick the top 3 that bring more satisfaction, or you feel like this is something that I definitely want to be able to do. I see myself doing it. It brings me joy. It brings me happiness doing those things, even if you're not doing them right now. Look at those 3 different things and then do what Suzanne mentioned. Take action. Start throwing noodles into the wall and see what's going to stick. You know, you're only going to get better by having more lessons, not failures, lessons, right? And so I would take it from that perspective. Make sure you're doing it for a purpose. Chunk it down to see what is the most important things you want to be able to do, and start taking actions. I'll give you a quick story on this. When I started my podcast, I wanted to have everything perfect, right? And a lot of times we want everything to be perfect. I have an idea. I want to be a podcaster. I want to do a book. I want to do whatever that might be. And you want everything to be perfect. And you're looking for that perfection. And because you don't have everything perfect, you never get started. That was me with my podcast. I wanted to have the right graphics. I wanted to have the right tools to be able to do the editing, all that stuff. And it took me 2-3 months for me to say, screw it. I'm going to start where I am right now, because you're never going to have everything. You're going to be learning. And so you want to start where you are now, take action and do it.
A quick follow-up, if I may, on that, Caesar. Thank you for that already. I was also asking myself if that's if you would approach starting a small business differently, or in what way you would approach that, because I feel currently a bit drawn towards that. I'm a very free soul, I would say, as well, breaking out of patterns, questioning everything around me. Whether you would also say, well, just start, or ask people, or whether you would say, okay, be a bit more cautious with that.
Again, for me, my experience, I had a lot of different lessons that I've learned. I think in 2009, 2010, when we had the housing crash, right? I'm also a real estate investor. Back then, I started real estate investing, and I had rental properties, I had multiple houses, and I lost it all. I lost literally everything. Part of the reason why I lost it all is because I was not educated enough. I didn't get any assistance or guidance from anybody. I thought I could do it myself. If I can go back then, what I would do different now for that particular business is I would have gotten a little bit more knowledge. Again, you're never going to have all of it. You want to be able to gather all the available data, not all the data, all the available data, whatever that might be, right? So if you're looking at starting a business, first, what business do I want to start? Second, do I know anybody in my circle of friends or influences that has done something similar that I can take 10, 15 minutes to learn from that person and be able to get some ideas, right? Once you have that and you have more or less an idea of what you want to be able to do, I will take the action to do it now. Don't do it without talking to anybody that might not be in the business, or even getting a little bit of ideas or learning a little bit. You want to be able to have a little bit of data. some available data, and then you will start from that perspective. That's what I would do differently. And again, when I went into real estate investing, I felt like, oh, it's easy. All I got to do is buy houses and use this money from the bank and just kind of keep doing that back and forth. And I did. And it worked out pretty good because, again, I was working for profits, not for purpose. And I lost it all. Bankrupt, foreclosures, lost everything. And it stayed in my record for 10 years. Those were the consequences of that. Going back to what I said earlier, the choices and decisions that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. So again, many different lessons from that perspective.
Thank you, Aaron, for asking that question, really kind of challenging us. That's where we grow, is when we have new ideas. And I know that you are a big thinker and you question everything, which I appreciate about you. So that's awesome. Is there, and did you have another question, Aaron? Yeah, of course he does. What do you got?
Michael?
Yeah, I kind of always have questions. If that's still okay within the time frame.
Alan, did you have something before we let Aaron go?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw something in there to a little bit towards Aaron's question. There's one of the most valuable advice I've ever gotten was, if you have something going on in your life, or if there's something you want in your life, find somebody who's done it and do what they did. Learn from somebody who's done it. Just go find that mentor, especially if you're looking at a business like that, as starting a small business, because there is a lot of investment, a lot of risk, a lot of upfront that you have to put into that. But yeah, if that's something that's really pulling your passion, find somebody who's done it and ask them a ton of questions.
Thanks, Alan, for that. So where are we going to next, Aaron?
Right, we're heading a similar direction, I would say. So connecting to that, finding that someone who is ahead of you in the journey. You could call them mentor, or someone who has achieved what you would like to achieve, at least in the direction, right? I'm always questioning a bit like, is it also just about action in reaching out to these people and saying, well, I love what you're doing, and then offering something like from the Mind Valley Quest, Mastering Authentic Networking, which he talked about a lot, offering generosity in that sense? Or I guess the quick question would be, how do you go about attracting these people that are ahead of you? Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Of course, cyber stalking shouldn't go too far, but I highly believe it's important. Show interest, really look into their lives, research their name in articles, look at their LinkedIn, look at their background. Excuse me, but be genuine, and trust that they'll see something in you too if you let them get to know you. But highly recommend stalking online and just learning everything you can about their business. I, as a communications specialist, you'll find a lot of businesses, businesses are people's dreams. Business is personal. So when you really look at what's behind somebody's business idea, you learn a lot about them. And so don't underestimate, the amount of information you can have. If it's a retail store, check out the lay of the land, go in, talk to the employees, see how they are. If it's something that's online, reach out and establish contact with people in the company, with the CEO. I recently found an entrepreneur that was an amazing influencer in his own space in real estate, commercial real estate. But he gave a graduate commencement speech, and his words of wisdom were about energy and the law of attraction. And he owns a multi-billion-dollar real estate company. I was like, what is this guy made of? you know? So if I approach him, I've looked into who he is. I've looked into how he ticks. I've read articles he's published. I know where he's influential, and I can come to him from a heart-centered space. So just be honest, be authentic. And if you don't know where to start, it's okay to say, I don't know where to start, but I really want to learn. It's just that honesty.
Thanks for that, Suzanne. Caesar, any guidance?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I agree with Suzanne, and then the other thing too. When you're looking at someone that's doing what you want to do, it also comes in a different form, right? Picking up a book, you know, a lot of times we neglect that. That's also a form of mentorship and looking at someone. There's a lot of material there, so you can pick up a book for someone that might be doing something you want to do. And a lot of times you'll find ideas and principles within that book. I also don't disregard YouTube. There's a lot of information you can get on YouTube. Obviously, it's a longer route to read and go through videos and things of that nature. Again, though, if you're looking at starting a business, you want to be able to get just enough data, available data, to be able to get you started. Because again, you're never going to get 100% all that you want. You can start your business, whatever that might be, now by having a sense of idea. And even through that process, you still go out and you start your business, and you continue to look for these people that can help you and guide you through the journey, right, while you're starting your business. And so I would say a combination of finding people on LinkedIn, learning from them, books, YouTube, and get your business started.
I would affirm that all those things work great, and you and I have kind of been through similar processes and learned kind of what is suggested by Keith Ferrazzi and other people around networking. And for me, like at this point, I'm reaching out to someone like Rich Litvin, who I've read his book, I've listened to his podcast, so I know the style that he brings. So I've done that research, and now I'm going to be starting a program with him, something that I'm going to be interacting with his community. And maybe it's getting part of someone's community. If there's a particular mission that you want to go into and find a similar vein of that, if it is forums or a Telegram group or something on Facebook, something where you're interacting with the people in that space, is having a one mentor, yes, and being a student of them, not a follower. Learning what they can teach because they took their path that they've taken in their environment too, and yours is going to be a little bit different. And it's a matter of applying the nuggets that apply to you, would be the feedback I'd give around that. Because looking at all the people that are in the coaching space, there's so many different types of coaches out there. And I could actually probably take any of those different routes, but I've got to find the one that's going to resonate the most with me. And I would encourage you to do the same, is find someone who's a few steps ahead. Thank you, Aaron, for that question. Did you have another question for us, Aaron? Okay. Anybody else have anything you want to ask our panel before we wrap up today? Well, thank you so much to all of you who have showed up here and given your time to us to, kind of bring this idea of drive. And these summits that we do on a monthly basis. We prepare for these, we bring information to you and people who have actually been there, rather than someone who's just reading something out of a book and laying it out for you to do. This to me is about the wisdom that we share in a community, and not about the weather, not about sports. It's about on the ground, what do we do it every day? So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for Elevate Your Drive 2021. And we hope to see you next month, where we're going to be talking about, I believe it's gratitude. And we'll be setting that out on LinkedIn, and please follow us there or on Eventbrite. And this will be going up on YouTube. And please interact with that. I'll be sending out a link once we publish that. And we hope to see you around. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao.